Welcome back, everyone. Got another video. This one's suggested by Shane Buckner. Appreciate it. He wanted me to do a video on Ernest Hollingsworth and his dogs. Nothing meant or intended for any illegal purposes. This is all history, fiction, and this is going back to, I don't know when he first started, probably like a lot of us, 70s, maybe 80s, maybe even earlier. I didn't know him. I never met him. I had to do some research, so if I miss stuff or if it doesn't sound complete, it's unintentional. I did as much as I could. There's not a lot of personal stuff on him. One or two stories here and there, and then what I have from memory. But a lot of people consider him one of the best breeders in history. And he did produce a lot of dogs, and his dogs did become a foundation for many people in the dog game. So what I can do is what little I read up about him, but I can go over some of his dogs, his pets, my opinion. When you breed dogs like that, it doesn't happen by chance. There's a method to the madness, and the results speak for themselves. It's interesting, some of the things about him. That he only bred red-nosed dogs. According to some people, he believed all black dogs were curs. And, for most people, that doesn't ring true. And there's too many examples. There's too many examples of too many black dogs that were absolutely game. But I understand it, because in speaking with Howard Heinzel, he didn't like black dogs either. He didn't think it was a pit bull color. But one of the most famous dogs in history, Daibo, had the Henry dogs behind him, and the Henry dogs were black. So of course we know all the Eli dogs, and I've heard people say, and I've mentioned certain things about the Eli dogs, about them, some of them not being game, and this and that, even in my books. And I point out some reasons why. It could be their structure, the way they're built, short, squatty. They don't have a deep chest. Could be because some breeders made excuses for them quitting because of their hard mouth and bred them anyways. But I have seen absolutely dead game Eli dogs, or bully son dogs, if you want to call them. Seen several of them, and went into a bunch of them that would go distance. They did bite hard and were game, and I've seen a ton of them quit, just like I've seen a ton of Jeep dogs and some red boy. I don't have, extensive experience with red boy dogs, but I've seen enough of them to know that they can be absolutely dead game, and I've seen some of them quit. So that's in all breeds, all bloodlines. And to say this bloodline or this family of dogs or whatever quits more than others, that would only be true on an individual basis. Overall saying it just means that people didn't breed them correctly. If you're saying, for the most part, these dogs quit. That doesn't mean there aren't game examples of every bloodline. There is. It's just who has them and what did they do with them, as my friend Billy Stevens used to say. That matters the most. And I mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. These chicken breeders, if you will, in the past, sent 9 million pieces of information to IBM to run through their computers and see which breeding methods work the best, what makes a good breeder, how can you get the best of the best, what methods, what techniques, what feeding, this and that, everything. And the three things that they came up with is something that dog guys have said for a long time, and cockfighters have said for a long time, is that it matters who breeds them and what they breed them for, how they're raised and how they're fed, their, what's it called, epigenetics, if you will. And the third thing is, some breedings click and some don't. They call it nick. Certain breedings nick and certain ones don't. So no matter what anyone thinks, anyone can become a good breeder if they follow certain standards. Anyone can screw up a bloodline or a family of dogs if they don't. So as far as being, black dogs, all of them being curs, that's not true. It's just, even myself, I preferred my reds and my buckskin dogs overall because, that was a foundation. I developed a particular shade of red. I liked them. They had certain things about them that I liked. So it wouldn't be wrong. Maybe Hollingsworth felt that the black dogs in his bloodline or his family of dogs weren't the game ones. That could be true. Just like, it's been said, Boudreaux and even Carver weeded out the blue dogs in their blood because they weren't the game ones. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, true or not, but I could see how that could happen. There could be particular genetics within a family of dogs or within the background or within a complete bloodline that ring true. You breed a bunch of Eli dogs, you're going to get black dogs. Even if the Eli dogs you're not breeding are black, because it's in there, it's going to come out. You breed Carver dogs or Boomerang dogs or whatever, doesn't matter what color they are, you're going to get some spotted dogs, patched dogs. Same thing with Kobe. Heinzel, you're going to get a bunch of red dogs, a bunch of brindle dogs, just the way it is. Tudor, Leitner, all this, they have particular builds on them that after many, 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 many years, they still hold true. They're going to have that kind of a short muzzle and a thin waist and a deep chest, and they stand tall. You see it even later dogs after Daibo, like Jimmy Boots. You see it in the Fontenot's booger stuff, you see it in Morphine blood. You see it in the Maloney stuff, and even beyond that, crab stuff like that. It's just things that are prevalent in a bloodline. So I wouldn't knock it. It seems kind of weird, and it may not even be true that he said that, but that was his preference. You got to respect someone for doing that. Believe me, there's dogmen, even myself, that have all kinds of quirks and say all kinds of stuff, and it may sound weird or different or wrong to other people. That's just part of anything that happens. Lady in Red, looks like to me, was a foundation female for him. She's line bred on Red Baby, ROM. Took Lady in Red to, apparently he loved the Tombstone Boleo stuff. I did too. Lady in Red to Yazoo Cody produced Dolly. And Dolly produced Grand Champion Mayday. Polly to Mayday produced Pro Sets Champion May, Big Apple's Champion Haunch, Red Apple's Champion Haunch, or maybe even Grand Champion Haunch. I forget, but we're going to go over it a little bit more. RTK's Dragoon, one-time winner. I'll mention some of these dogs later because what I see with Dolly is she was a great producer. So I'm going to go over her ped and some of the stuff she produced. She's off of Browning's Yazoo Cody, Patrick Lady in Red, Yazoo Cody's out of A&M's Champion Red Dog. Browning's Yazoo Reba. Lady in Red's out of Patrick's Little Tater and Anderson's Rose. So here's that, you could call it heavy Boleo, because in the background you got Indian Bull, Hook's Grand Champion Rowdy, 6-time winner, Aunt Jane. Those I mentioned before in the Mayday video. That stuff goes back to the earliest Boleo crosses when Indian Sunny still had them. There's Boleo with Corvino and Eli Jr. stuff. That's old stuff. You have Peck Daisy, Bill Boy Bob, of course, Red Baby. You have Tonka, that's the Tombstone Red Baby stuff, the Tombstone Boleo, and even Klaus in there. Anderson's Auburn, Boleo himself, Tuffy. Then way at the bottom, Anderson's Auburn, Jay Carver's Redneck, and Holt's Ginger. I believe that's the Boomerang with some of that Tombstone Red Baby stuff. So here you have a concentration of all these great dogs to produce Dolly, who I don't know if she had a record herself. She's a ROM female for sure. More than just 3 champions. But she was a prolific producer. And when you have a female like that, and I've mentioned this several times, the females matter to most, at least. When you have a female like that, that's worth their weight in gold. She was definitely one of those, even though I wasn't familiar. And I saw some of the dogs bred down from this stuff. I don't know exactly how they were bred, but they're typical, especially the red ones. They all kind of look the same. They all kind of fight the same. They're rough and rugged and game and, smart. And a lot of good qualities about them. Some of them are big dogs, although the ones I saw were not big dogs. They were regular like everything else, 38, 40, like that, And I didn't see a whole lot of them, but I saw enough of them to know where you see certain patterns in them. And you can look the way they're the way they're built, their ears drop and their thick bones, the gold eyes and the red toenails and anywhere from, they're red nose. Some are lighter colored, some are darker, a little bit darker, but they're not that deep, rich red like a lot of OFRN stuff. Even though most dogs have OFRN in it, it's that Mayday color. It's that Tonka color, that kind of red. Dolly and, Hollingsworth Bull, and Bull is probably one of his most famous studs from what I gather. To me, they have the same dam. And, which is Lady in Red, different sires, right? To me, they could be litter mates. I mean, they are almost exactly to a T. And that just shows the genetics within that family of dogs, how powerful it is coming through the female. Much like Dirty Mary's offspring and descendants resembled her a lot. She threw dogs, and her offspring threw dogs that had that blue eye. Some have 2 blue eyes. That red and white color, that build. Kind of like a Hank build. They showed that a lot. So we see that in dogs like Dolly and Bull, and I would guess Polly, and a lot of these dogs just look the same. That's a good sign of good breeding, in my opinion. Again, her siblings, not only Polly, but there was Molly, Bob, Redman Jr. There's extensive lists of all his dogs, which means to me that he bred a lot of them. And to go along with that, there's a lot of good, productive dogs that come from that. Champions, Grand Champions, ROM, POR, all this stuff. Another sign of a good breeder. That the dogs you produce are good. People take your dogs, breed them, show them, do whatever they do with them, and they have good results with them too. Some of the spring, of course, Grand Champion Mayday, one of the most prolific stud dogs in the history. And you know, with me, some of these dogs, I'm not that familiar with them. I didn't have the blood. I didn't see a lot of it, but the information's there of how great they were. Every great dog, I don't care if it's Daibo, I don't care if it's Spike, doesn't matter if it's Barney or Boomerang or Zebo or whoever, somebody's going to knock it. They do the same thing with Mayday. But he's absolutely one of the top producers in the history of the breed, so you can't deny that. It wouldn't even, I have nothing against him. It wouldn't matter if I liked him or not. He was great. That's what matters, and you have to respect that, and I do that. Just like Hollingsworth, I'm not familiar with him, doesn't matter. Great breeder. I have to acknowledge it. So along with Grand Champion Mayday, you have Southern Kennels Champion Dragon Lady, Southern Kennels Champion Dragon Man, Red Tide Kennels Crash, who was a 2-time winner, 1-time game loser, STP's Goldie. Dragon Man could also, I think, Victor Acart owned him too. And Acart had a lot to do with this, of course, with Mayday. You know, he's one of the people that took the blood and ran with it, did good with it. Hollingsworth Sugarfoot and Tonka, Southern Kennels Diana, 2-time winner. Ice Day is POR. Polly herself, who's a sibling, ROM as well, produced Pro Sets Champion May. You know, I mentioned before. Southern Kennels Napalm, Big Apple's Grand Champion Haunch, mentioned before. Latin Force Kennels Champion Johnny 5, 8-Cart and Red Ties Loopy, ROM. So that's just a little bit that's coming down from Dolly and her sister Polly. So I think Dolly gets a lot of credit, well deserved. Polly should get good credit too, well deserved. It's just a little bit just to keep in confines with the time limit of the video. And you know, I remember one of them down from this stuff was a little female. I mentioned her opponent a bunch of times, OTK's Daisy. Daisy just, you know, very convincingly won in 22 minutes. But the female, her opponent, who's a 2-time winner, wasn't no slouch. Daisy came out and hit her in the shoulder. This bitch latched onto her muzzle, would not let go. Didn't make a peep from the punishment. Daisy got in her groin area, her privates, all that. Never made a sound. They did the right thing in picking her up. But not a peep out of that bitch, even losing battle. She never thought she was losing. Never quit. She was raring to go at the end. Just got outclassed. Not raring to go, was still willing to go. She got beat up pretty good, you know. So that, even though it wasn't that long, it impressed me enough to say, if you got a whirlwind on you that's biting the shit out of you, putting you down and getting you in positions where you cannot defend yourself, and you're taking it with aplomb, you show me heart. Another dog I saw a long time ago was a dog named Champion Black, and he had this stuff in him. I don't know how much, but I know he had it. I know the person that owned Champion Black has that blood. I saw him beat a 1-time winner for his 3rd and championship match in 2 hours and 17 minutes. Just a solid dog. Took good punishment. The dog hit him in his stifle. Ballooned it up. Black took it, kept coming. Outgamed the dog. It was a good match. They were throwing blows back and forth like that for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Good pace. And Champion Black won. And there's been a few others. Those are the two that come to mind. I mentioned Hollingsworth Bull. He's a POR. He's out of Crumbs Caribou and Lady in Red. That's the half brother, half sister. And I'm telling you, if you put the pictures of them together, go online, look at the pictures of Bull and Dolly and probably Polly together, they would look like littermates. So I'm saying, it's, in my opinion, it's heavy because of the Dolly influence. That's where that look is coming from. That's my guess, because with Bull, His sires, Crumbs Joe and Crumbs Chumery. He's more of the different Tombstone Red Baby in that he's Tonka's litter mate is his grandfather, Champion Crash, Wilson's Champion Crash, and Cremator. Girly Crumb was the owner of Cremator. She's part of that great litter that had about 13 wins and 1 game loss, where you have Champion Tonka, 3-time winner, Champion Crash, a 3-time winner, Champion Snubby, a 3-time winner, Best in Show winner, and Crumb's Cremator was a 2-time winner. And there were other dogs in there, maybe Voodoo or Machiavelli, I forget. But it was a great litter. And all the dogs in that litter, not only were they game and great performers and all that stuff, but they all produced good dogs. Some better than others. Tonka #1, but Snubby produced her fair share. That stuff went over to Europe. It was on the East Coast. They used it. The Uptown Boys had her. Won Best in Show with her. She produced some dogs out here, and more so over and across the pond. You see that stuff, Snubby mixed with the Fox Jr. stuff. Petronelli's Fox, who was Boomerang's brother, Grand Champion Boomerang's brother. And you see it bred to the Champion Spike stuff. So good stuff. Crash, too, more out on the West Coast. Those dogs were more private, kept to themselves, but some of them made it out there. Scratch and Stitch, I believe, had some of it. Of course, Marshall Wilson, the breeder. Those dogs were all over the West Coast and Baja. Yet into Mexico, they did good. Cremator, too, produced her fair share. So the sire, Crumbs Caribou, that's basically what he is. Heavy Tombstone Red Baby, heavy Tombstone Red Baby. And that's where you get, where I mentioned earlier, that Mr. Hollingsworth liked to breed to the Tombstone Red Baby stuff. That's a perfect example with Hollingsworth Bull. And of course, Lady in Red, more of the Tombstone Red Baby. And there's little crosses in there. Crumbs Caribou, sired by Crumbs Joe Bob and Crumbs Chumery. Chumery is out of Soros Bull and Crumbs Cremator. Joe Bob was out of Champion Crash and Crumbs Cremator. So double Cremator. They affectionately called her Creamy. Girly Crumb's daughter keeps in contact every now and again. And that's what she called them. So I figure the kids and the family, that was their name for her, Creamy. And then you have the Soros Bull in there. Crumbs Chumery is sired by Soros Bull out of Crumbs Cremator. So that's the heavy Zeke stuff. Zeke is the sire of Boleo. So anytime you see Boleo and Soros Bull, you got a heavy Zeke dog, because Bull is double bred Zeke, father-daughter off of Zeke. And Boleo is a son of Zeke. I think Bull was one of those dogs. He may not have a record, and he may not be a ROM. Maybe he is. But I think he's the type that produced dogs that could produce. That's what I gather. He's a good producer himself. His offspring were good producers. And it just allows you to keep that blood going. Almost like Fontenot's Booger. I don't know if Fontenot's Booger won. I can't remember in the talks we had about him with Mr. Gray, this and that, you know. And he was kind of centralized a little bit in the South and then in Mexico. But heavy Booger dogs were all through, you know, Texas, Louisiana, mostly in Mexico. And they just made a whole bloodline out of it, you know. The Fontenot Booger, the Booger blood. One of those type of dogs. They may not have an elaborate record or ton of wins or anything like that, but they were damn good producers, and their offspring and progeny were also producers. It keeps the line going. They have the ability to pass on the traits, pass on the genetics, keep that stuff going. I think that's why dogs off of Bull and Dolly and Polly and all that stuff, that's why they look the same. They're able to reproduce those traits, those looks, that build, that attitude, that intensity, that strength, that durability. I'll say one thing about the Mayday stuff that I saw and the Hollingsworth stuff, down from Hollingsworth stuff, is they're rugged and durable. That was a couple of things about them that little bitch was that way, Champion Black was that way. Other dogs, I'm sure they were bred that way just by the look. That's the way they were. They could take the punishment. They got thick skin, thick muscles, thick bone, big heads, thick leg, thick style. It's hard to punish them. Remind me of the white dogs. They're built different, but remind me of the white dogs. They're just durable. They take a lot of punishment. So Bull's siblings were Hollingsworth Saber, Miss Flame, Toot, and Cody. You'll see Cody in pedigrees. I've seen him in pedigrees, different ones. Offspring, Vice Grip's Red Sonja. Makes perfect sense that Vice Grip would use that blood because of his, the Mason's Champion Hammer stuff and all that stuff that he had. So it's Offspring were Vice's Red Sonja. Red Tide Kennels Crash, a 2-time winner, 1-time game loser. STP's Goldie, 2-time winner. Hollingsworth Pencil, 1-time winner. REK's Bullfrog, 1-time winner. Pit Stops Chuck Red Boy, 3-time winner, 1-time loser. Red Lady, Susie POR. Hollingsworth Blade was a 3-time winner. Titan Kennels Red Bull is a POR. Lady Caribou, Titan Kennels, Mrs. Hollingsworth. So you have all these, these guys were kind of a little bit after my time, even though I still have the magazines and I read about them. I could see their names in there, but there's a lot of these guys that were out there competing, out there breeding dogs that I see that have this blood. They repeatedly use it over and over, along with Mr. Hollingsworth, Mr. Victor Acart, and you see a lot of Southern Kennel stuff and Titan Kennels. Hollingsworth continuing to breed. And again, that just shows me that the prepotency of the blood and the importance that these breeders thought it was to have this blood. And believe me, it went everywhere. I've been all the way down to Central America, South America. And one thing I noticed is I think it was Sorrel's Bull or Sorrel's Big John, Little John, one of them, crossed with the Invicto blood. So here I have this stuff going with the Boleo stuff and all that. When you have this Boleo stuff, mostly is, when you see Tombstone Red Baby, is Boleo and Klaus. So you see a lot of that, Boleo and Klaus. You see a lot of Boleo and it's Klaus different ways, The Red Baby stuff is Goldie and all that. Other stuff would be the Henry stuff, the Allen's mugs and all that. So I don't think the Boleo Klaus blood gets enough credit sometimes. And I was in a show that, judged a show in Southern Cal a couple of years ago. Some guys came with the, I think it was the Kirshner dogs. Again, Boleo Klaus, real typey dogs, man. Real neat looking little dogs. Fine and on the smaller side. A lot of energy and spirit. They have a certain look to them. You have to see them to imagine them. They look like old-timey stuff, them little dogs that them guys used to match a long time ago. Not that all of them are little, but enough of them are small where, it's noticeable. That red color, So I think people realize like even the Patrick Homer stuff. You see it all different ways. The Klaus bug in and out there. And it was just nice to see that even this was 2020 something, 21, 22, 23, something like that. And these guys still had those dogs and were still breeding them. That's how long it's been around. And they maintained the look. Now, we didn't have any sports going on that day, so I couldn't speak to the performance. Whether they're good at weight pull or wall climb. I bet they'd be hell on wall climb and treadmill race. Because one thing about the Boleo or Tombstone Boleo or any Boleo cross or even the Mayday stuff and like that, like Champion Black, they have no problem going the distance. They have a lot of energy. They have a lot of endurance. Not that in the past some of them weren't short order cooks. They were. When you're tough and rugged and strong like that, you can put something out real quick. And you either do it by overpowering them, just knocking the crap out of them where they give up, or you break them down quick and they can't go if they wanted to. Those are the type of dogs like in that if they can get it done fast, they will. They will. If they have to go distance, they can. That's what I like about those dogs. That's what I like about my dogs. That's what I respect about the Hollingsworth dogs, the few examples I saw. And any bloodline that's able to do that. That's the type of dog I prefer. Some people just want short order cooks. Some people, like the white dogs, they had no problem going the distance. That was their game. That's what Steve liked, according to him, when I spoke to him. Just getting started at the hour mark, So I prefer the best of both. Get it done, get in there and get out. Nobody wants to stay there all night. Or very few people do. I had no problem with it. I became accustomed to it. But if I could get in and out fast, great. Do it again. If I had to be there a long time, that's okay too. We can do that too. But you have to have the individuals that are able to do that. And if you're talking about modern day hunting or something, you need endurance too. You're talking about legal sports, you need endurance too. So it's something that's been within the breed for a long time and different time periods within the breed. You have dogs where the majority of them are going more distance, and you have some that the majority of them are short time. I've said this before too. If you go through the journal, somebody did a comparison, this and that, over the certain amount of years or whatever. I think the average time for the shows back then was 45 minutes, something like that. And that's including all those 3 and 4 hour shows and 2 hours, 2.5, 2, 3 hour, all that stuff. Compared with the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, When I say 5 minutes, like Grand Champion, what was her name? That little female. Grand Champion Mammy, I think it was. One of her wins was in 5 minutes. Grand Champion, what's her name? That black bitch. She got stolen. We just talked about her the other day. Forgive my mind, it wanders sometimes. Molly B, that's who it was. One of her wins was in 2 minutes. In her matches, total time was 2 hours. So if you do the math, she was an 8-time winner. Her average time was 15 minutes. Because one of those wins was in 2 minutes. And she had other ones that were longer. And she beat some badass bitches. I think one of the bitches she beat was Jocko's sister. If I'm not, Jocko's sister or Jocko's niece. I forget what it was. But very good 2-time winner or 3-time winner. Apple maybe, or Apple's daughter or something like that. I forget. But I know she beat one of them dogs. And several other dogs too. So you have that again with this blood too. They can go a short time if you ain't up to par, but they can hang in for the long run. So that's a little bit on Hollingsworth Bull. I found this dog too, and I put it up. Well, let me show. Maybe you can see it. That's Bull. Just kind of take a good look at him there. This is Dolly. I'm telling you, they look like litter mates, man. And I keep saying that because, that's what you want in a family of dogs. That's what I admired when people would come to my house. They would say, Richard, all your dogs look the same. That made me feel good. I'm doing something right. I'm keeping the family intact. You don't have to inbreed to do that either, believe me. That's what most people would think. Oh, you must inbreed your dogs a lot. Nope, I didn't do any inbreeding. Except granddaughter to father one time. But I did have some tight breedings, and my dogs were inbred behind that, and I mean up close. Big Red's daddy was inbred. Champion Bill, Mr. Roddy Clayton Blood, Percy, all them, their mother was inbred. So was Champion Knucklehead, inbred Jeep bitch. So you don't have to inbreed to get what you want. You can, and it's good, and it has its place, and do it if you want, but there's certain standards you got to follow. And for me, health and youth and spirit and vitality and all that, no major flaws, no quirks, no weird shit. Any one of those things that's in a dog, I wouldn't inbreed it. And hell, I might not even line breed or outcross it either. You know, not every dog is a perfect example of everything, and not every dog has every tool. But you know, if you weed out major flaws, you have less of a chance of getting them. And making excuses for bad traits and bad things and stuff that's not going to help your bloodline just because of the way a dog is bred, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So I brought this dog up too. CML's Little John. I know there's a Big John, Little John, so I can't remember which stuff was crossed with the Invicto. But this is from a frozen semen breeding, I think. Or they have frozen semen of him. I don't know if it's current or whatever. But I just want to go over his pedigree, and there's a picture of him. That's a typical Boleo looking dog. If you look at pictures of Red Baby and Commander Whitehead and dogs like that, they have the same head, same face. If you have to stop the video to pause it just to get a good look at it. Those same legs, they come kind of straight down. And I could see why. The thing with Mayday, he has the he has the Yellow John and Jocko stuff and all that, Grand Champion Yellow and all that, which that went well with the Boleo Tombstone stuff, So that's an important part of it too. Some people don't look at that side of Mayday, with the Grand Champion Yellow and all that. And some people look at that and they don't see the other side. So I think all of it is important because it clicked together good. So Little John was sired by Hell on Earth's Champion Bumper, a 4-time winner. Again, another offspring of Dolly. Bumper was sired by Gainey's Grand Champion JR, 5-time winner. His litter mates were Grand Champion Yellow, STP's Champion Sassy, Supernat's Boots. Boots was a 4-hour winner. That was a great litter, and you don't hear about JR that much because a lot of guys didn't advertise it, And I don't think all of their matches were reported, which is why they're not official. He's not an official Grand Champion. But no doubt, Melvin Gainey, he's not going to lie about that, And other people that were there and saw it and, will vouch for him being a multiple winner like that. Even though Grand Champion Yellow gets a lot of the press, he was out there more. I think Gainey and some of the Boots and all that were dogs kept to themselves, kept on the yard mostly. There are other people that bred to him, friends and associates, whatever, but not like Yellow. Yellow gets most of the press because he was out there, and that's what you have to do if you want your dogs to see how they compete in other people's hands, or you're looking to make money to feed the yard and upkeep and all that stuff. You have to put them out there. A lot of people don't care about that, They keep everything on their yard, which I respect. I don't mind either one. People call them peddlers, whatever. There's hardly any dog man I know that I was familiar with or that I read about in the history of the breed that didn't sell dogs. Some more than others, So that was a great litter. Bumper's dam was Cruz Wiggles 2. And again, that stuff goes back to Champion Yellow Jaw. That's the Red Boy Jocko cross. Champion Yellow Jaw and Tan Smith Yellow John, Tan Smith Jocko. Wiggles 2 is out of Tans Rojo and Chavez Wiggles. So you have more that it's Red Boy Jocko, Red Boy Jocko, Red Boy Jocko, all that stuff on that side. And of course, Dolly we went over. That's it. So you have the Red Boy Jocko cross with the Tombstone Red Baby, Boleo, all that stuff. Just works. But I thought it was important to put Little John up there, for me anyways, because I wanted to show, I don't know when he was born or whatever. But it was important to me to show that that look, that Boleo look, is still there. Even though he has that Red Boy Jocko stuff, you see the Boleo stuff coming through. Again, a lot of them look that way. His siblings were Southern Kennels Iron Man, Golden's Red, some of his offspring, CML. I forget what that stands for. I used to know, I can't remember now. They were prolific breeders and competitors too back in the day. You see, they ran with this stuff and they did good with it. So some of his offspring were CML's champion Wakan, Gator Boys, I can't read the word. Ruby, one-time winner. HKS's Little John Jr., one-time winner. CML's Laura, POR. CML's Missing Link, ROM. CML's Mulafika, two-time winner. Best in Show, POR. So that's, I don't know if that was from the frozen semen. I don't know if they have the frozen semen available today. I don't know anything, except that it's important that when you see CML using this blood and you see this stuff all over the place and they're crossing it with more Tombstone Red Baby and got more of the Jocko Red Boy, and I'm sure there's STP's Buck in there somewhere, and you put all that stuff together and you can just keep going for generations after generations. Because like I've mentioned before also, when you start getting all these dogs, even though they may be from different bloodlines and whatnot, when you start breeding them yourself, all the dogs become related on your yard. And it's just a matter of choosing the best ones to breed to and using the best ones for whatever you want to use them for. You know, and nowadays legal stuff, but they're good for that. That's the versatility of the pit bull, that they can be used in modern day and don't have to use them for what they were used for in the past, even though they retain a lot of those traits, man. You can't go and hunt hogs with no cur, I'll tell you that. And you can't hit a pack of coyotes with one or two dogs and come out of there if you got a cur dog. I know that for a fact. I've been in those situations myself with dogs. So that comes from experience. Here's a dog that I couldn't find anything on. No siblings, no offspring, nothing. I don't know what happened to him. I don't even know if Hollingsworth continued to breed them. But it's important, I think, just to show this aspect of another breeding or another dog that he got and used. I'm sure he did something with him. If the dog survived and he turned out, I'm sure Hollingsworth bred him. I just couldn't find any information on it. But I'm going to go through the pedigree here a little bit. Hollingsworth Prince, and I think that's a homage to a dog that Carver had named Prince. That's behind a lot of this stuff way back. I don't even know if that Prince was bred or anything. I know he was a very good dog. He was mentioned by other people that could have acquired him and didn't, but the guy that acquired him did very well with him. Won with that dog named Prince from Carver. This Prince, Hollingsworth Prince, was out of Tozer's, Arizona, and M&D's Pacer. So M&D is behind Mayday as well. Tozer, I'm not sure who that was, but that's a familiar name back in the day. Had the Bobby Jr. stuff, Boleo stuff. They did good with their dogs, very competitive. Tozer's Arizona Cole is Prince's sire. He's off a Thrift Boils / champion Bobby Jr. and Patrick's Billy too. M&D's Pacer is out of Patrick's Little Tater and Patrick's Red Lady. So if I'm not mistaken, that's Buck's, Grand Champion Buck's littermate, maybe. Something to do with that. But here, like I mentioned before, I'm sure they bred a buck. So I don't know if Hollingsworth bred the buck or he included buck in his stuff. He probably did. Just common sense tells me that. I could be wrong, but here's another one with that stuff in it, the little tater red lady stuff that he acquired. He did it for a reason. And of course, this all goes back to Bobby Jr., Mabel, Bull Boy Bob, and there we see Anderson's Rose again. She's a daughter of Tonka. Some more Bull Boy Bob and Red Baby. Then you have Keno and Dolly. Keno and Dolly has the tombstone in it, but it's a lot of that Maloney stuff. So that's another one of those crosses they use with the tombstone blood. There's a commonality there. The Maloney blood heavy Dibo, tombstone heavy Dibo. So you put that together. But also you put the Maloney stuff with the Boleo stuff. You see that. Again, the commonality there. Dibo, Black Widow, all that. And I just thought it was a very interesting, back in the day, if I had an opportunity to get a dog like this, I'd definitely get it. It's got heavy Boleo in it, and I used to love them dogs. I still do, from the past. But it's also got some other stuff, Patrick's Goldie and the Maloney blood, Tonka and all that. So I think it was interesting to, and like I said, I love the video. So that's about it for Hollingsworth. I hope I did him justice. I know just from people I talked to, the twins and the owner of Champion Black and just different people that I'm familiar with speak highly of the blood. Again, Acart had it and CML had it. Southern Kennels had a ton of it, Much respect to everybody involved with it. Even though I may not be familiar with a lot of them, I know it was out there. I know it did well. And I'm sure there's a ton of it all over the place. And like I said, I seen the Hollingsworth and Invictus stuff way, way down south. Good dogs. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for your support and more on the way. Got more interviews and more topics. Just keep it going as long as I can. Thank you very much.